You ever get that feeling the entire NFL keeps sleeping on the Vikings no matter what they do? Because that's exactly what's happening again right now. Doesn't matter if this team keeps competing, doesn't matter if they keep proving people wrong every season, somehow the disrespect always comes back. And honestly, Vikings fans are getting tired of hearing the same weak takes every single offseason. But this year feels different. Because if this team clicks early, a lot of people around the league are going to look real stupid by mid-season. If you're riding with the Vikings this year, smash that like button right now and drop a SKOL down in the comments so the real fans can show up. There's a growing feeling around the NFL right now that the Minnesota Vikings are being treated like an afterthought again, and honestly, the latest power rankings might have pushed that disrespect to a completely different level. Because when the NFL's official social media rankings placed the Vikings at 28th in the league after the 2026 NFL Draft, it instantly sparked outrage among fans who believe this team is being completely misunderstood heading into the season. And the crazy part is this isn't just a small disagreement over rankings. We're talking about the Vikings being labeled as a bottom-5 team in the entire NFL. Think about that for a second. A franchise that won 14 games just 2 seasons ago. A team coached by Kevin O'Connell, whose worst years as head coach have still resulted in 7 wins and 9 wins despite major quarterback instability. A roster that still features Justin Jefferson and what many believe could become one of the NFL's top defenses under Brian Flores. Yet somehow, this team is being grouped alongside organizations that are either rebuilding or stuck in chaos. The reaction from Vikings analysts and fans has been immediate, because the comparison simply doesn't make sense on paper. The teams sitting around Minnesota in those rankings included the Dolphins, Jets, Cardinals, and Ravens, while franchises like the Browns, Giants, Titans, Commanders, and Saints were somehow ranked ahead of the Vikings. That's where the frustration really exploded. Because even people willing to criticize Minnesota's offseason still struggle to understand how this roster could realistically be considered worse than several of those teams. What makes this even more fascinating is the confidence surrounding the Vikings internally, compared to the perception outside the building. There's a growing belief among people close to the team that national analysts are focusing too heavily on uncertainty at quarterback, while ignoring the overall structure Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores have built. Minnesota may not have made the flashiest offseason moves, but there's still strong confidence that the foundation of this roster is far more stable than outsiders are admitting. And that's where the Kyler Murray conversation becomes one of the biggest talking points surrounding this team. The criticism from NFL analyst Eric Edholm centered heavily around concerns that Murray would need to save the Vikings offensively. But many inside the Vikings community completely reject that idea. The argument being made is simple. Minnesota does not need Kyler Murray to play like an MVP for this team to succeed. They only need competent quarterback play. That point becomes even more important when looking back at last season. Despite what many described as disastrous quarterback play, the Vikings still managed to finish 9-8. According to the discussion surrounding the rankings, there's even an argument that only the Jets had worse quarterback production in the NFL. Yet Minnesota still remained competitive throughout the year and finished with a respectable record despite all the instability. That's why there's such disbelief around the idea that this team could suddenly collapse into a 4-win or 5-win disaster. To many Vikings supporters, that prediction ignores the culture Kevin O'Connell has established since arriving in Minnesota. Even critics of O'Connell admit his teams consistently compete. Under his leadership, the Vikings have shown resilience regardless of injuries, roster turnover, or quarterback problems. And then there's the NFC North argument, which might actually be the most overlooked part of this entire debate. Nationally, there's this perception that the Lions, Packers, and Bears are all significantly ahead of Minnesota. But last season tells a very different story. The Vikings went 4-2 inside the division. They beat Detroit twice. They won games against division rivals even during what many considered a disappointing season. Yet somehow, the public conversation acts as if Minnesota finished dead last in the NFC North and never competed with those teams at all. That disconnect between reality and perception is fueling a massive chip on the shoulder for this fan base right now. Because, from the Vikings' perspective, this isn't about claiming they're Super Bowl favorites. Most people around the team aren't even predicting a deep playoff run. The frustration comes from the idea that Minnesota is being treated like one of the league's worst organizations, despite years of evidence showing they remain competitive almost every season under O'Connell. Even the projected schedule adds fuel to the argument. Minnesota still gets several very manageable home games against teams like the Panthers, Falcons, Dolphins, Colts, and Commanders. So even in a worst-case scenario, where the Vikings struggle inside the division, many believe the math simply doesn't support a bottom-5 collapse. The argument being made is that this roster is too talented, too well-coached, and too structurally sound to completely fall apart the way national analysts are predicting. And maybe the boldest moment of this entire discussion came when one Vikings commentator made an unbelievable promise to fans. He publicly stated that if the Vikings somehow finish with a top-5 draft pick next season, he would shave his head live on stream because he believes there is essentially zero chance Minnesota ends up that bad. That level of confidence shows just how disconnected many Vikings supporters feel from the national narrative surrounding this team right now. What's becoming clear is that the Vikings are entering another season with something to prove. Again. And if there's one thing this franchise has repeatedly used as motivation over the years, it's being doubted before the season even begins. So now the question shifts directly to the fans. Are the Vikings truly being disrespected by the national media again? Or are analysts right to doubt this team heading into 2026? And where do you honestly believe Minnesota belongs in the NFL power rankings right now? But now, I want to hear from all of you, Vikings fans. Do you think the NFL is completely disrespecting Minnesota again? Or do you believe the concerns about this team are actually fair? How many wins do you honestly see the Vikings getting this season, and where do you think they'll finish in the NFC North? Drop your predictions down in the comments, because I genuinely want to know how confident this fan base is heading into 2026. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss any breaking Vikings news, rumors, or off-season updates. SKOL Vikes.